Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is August the 11th, 2017. Buy and hold. Get rich by desiring little. Pure commitment to Bitcoin. And what a commitment it is. I am in Dublin, Ireland. I landed like 2 hours ago. I can't even tell you what time it is, but I needed to make this show. And the guys that are on the air with me today, they all came here last minute. We might have some other people joining us. So let me just quickly get rid of this screenshot. Remember to go to cryptohwwallet.com and let me introduce everyone just to say who they are. Farzan. Say, you're coming from South Africa, Johannesburg. Tell us who you are.
How you doing, guys? My name is Farzan Masani, working in Johannesburg. Unlike most people probably in this world, actually working for a bank. So I look forward to chatting to you guys.
Awesome. And BTC Benny, you say everyone knows who you are.
Yeah, my name is Ben, or BTC Benny on Twitter, and yeah, I run a channel called the BTC Sessions. So yeah, you can hit me up on YouTube and check out my channel. A lot of easy how-tos, and I'm excited to be here this morning.
Francis Poulot is here. Oh wait, you're muted, Francis, and he's coming from Montreal, by the way.
Right, I'm unmuted now. Hi guys, I'm Francis Pouliot. I'm from Montreal, Canada. I'm a Bitcoin entrepreneur and activist.
Dude, and Simon Dixon came into the room. Simon, say where you are today and what's going on.
I was making you sweat, Adam. You thought I wasn't going to show up.
You never know. Dude, it's crazy here, man. It's good to see you.
I'm visiting my family in London again. I'm here for the next month, normally in Asia, normally in Hong Kong, but yeah, doing a bit of Europe for the next month or so. So I'm from banktothefuture.com.
Okay, so we have people all over the world here. This is going to be an awesome show. Pound that like button, everyone. Well, Farzan's got only a limited amount of time with us today, so we are going to start with him. You first of all, Lorian Gamaroff recommended you. You both obviously know each other in South Africa and everything. We were hitting $3,500 a Bitcoin right now this morning. I mean, people are excited. People are excited about Segwit. What is your take? What is your take on this week in Bitcoin for you in South Africa? What's going on? Just tell us.
So as usual, lots is happening in this world. As you just said, the price hit 3,500. We just had the Filecoins ICO with one of the biggest raises, over $250 million. We had Coinbase raising a whole bunch of money, $100 million, making them a unicorn. So tons happening in this world. I think it's not like an unusual week. There's always tons happening in this world. And also kind of living in the glow and the aftermath of the Bitcoin Cash fork. So I think lots is happening over here in South Africa. We're super excited. Obviously, the Bitcoin price over here generally trades in South African rands anywhere between 2% to 30% premium above the dollar rand Bitcoin dollar price. So we actually, in our local currency, 50,000 rands per Bitcoin as well. So that's a pretty big thing in our own market as well. So lots happening in this world, super exciting. Very excited to actually see what's going to be happening with this world post Segwit, second layer, lightning channels, and how that's going to change things. So very exciting times.
Well, and I want to ask you something. In South Africa, on the ground, do people care about all of these things as much as the mainstream Bitcoin cryptocurrency community does in the world? Or are there other concerns that we just don't know about? I mean, Lorian has talked about, and I have been to South Africa. I didn't debrief you on this beforehand, but I spent a lot of time with Lorian in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Mozambique in November. So, sure. I mean, I've seen there's some desperation there in terms of needing Bitcoin for, transferring it across borders and stuff. So some of these bigger, we're excited about the technological abilities of Segwit. Is that, do people care there? Are there some other really basic things? Because the world wants to know.
Yeah, so I think first of all, there's a lot of people that are very excited about this technology, Bitcoin, as well as the other cryptocurrencies, as well as blockchain technology in general, just as much as everywhere else in the world. We do have particular things in this market, which is the fact that, compared to, the US or other developed markets, there is a much higher kind of proportion of poverty in South Africa and in Africa in general. And I think the potential for this technology to impact financial services that we all know so well about is super exciting. One of the things, though, I think we kind of sometimes get a little bit kind of in too deep, forgetting about some of the intricacies, is that oftentimes people think like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchain is going to completely change the world. The fact of the matter is we have social issues. We have a lot of poverty. So if someone doesn't have rands or dollars in Zimbabwe, whatever it may be, to feed themselves now, the fact that there's a new asset on the market, even though you can transfer it cheaper, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to promote financial inclusion better. So there are a lot of things around kind of the technology and the cryptocurrencies that still need lots and lots of problem solving and lots of improvement. One thing that is kind of on our minds much more than other markets is remittances. So remittances is a huge market, and if you look at remittances generally in a traditional financial institution, on average, about 12% of what you send is actually taken out of your transaction in fees. Now that's just ludicrous, especially in a part of the world that has a lot of poverty. So that's one of the things that we're super excited about, is just the fact that this technology pays no heed to borders, and given the global nature of the world and diasporas from Africa, etc., all over the world, we're seeing a lot of people starting to use this technology to facilitate transactions for those that have left and gone to the developed world back into Africa. So that's a very exciting thing that's particular to this part of the world.
Well, yeah, this is good. I'm glad you've given us the perspective, because people do like to hear that different perspective. Now, I want to move to Francis here, because he himself has made news this week, and I know everybody else is going to want to comment on this. You put out a tweet basically defining what a bunch of Canadian businesses define the real Bitcoin as, and what is a hard fork, what is a contentious hard fork. I linked to it below. I'm going to link to everybody's information below eventually. Right now, I only linked to Francis's tweet because this was so last minute putting the show together. But Francis, elaborate on this, because it has to do with the potential 2x that we're going to get, and we're going to have to address that, because that is news of this week, because people are starting to talk about the 2x part of Segwit 2x.
Yeah, okay. So that specific article came out in the end of March, and it was as a result of Bitcoin Unlimited gaining a lot of ground, and some of the exchanges, some policy regarding how they were gonna treat the fork, and which one was Bitcoin or not. And I wasn't specifically happy. I didn't think those policies were very sophisticated. So we decided to put out one of our own. I'm not even sure I had the idea. I think it was one of the other guys that was a signatory, but we just started out as a bunch of Bitcoin entrepreneurs that operate Bitcoin businesses in Canada. And this is a constituency of the Bitcoin consensus that we would call the economic nodes, or economic businesses, or economic majority, or industry. But the specific businesses that we have in Canada are a little bit different than the ones that sign other agreements like Coinbase or BitPay or those companies, since we're much smaller, we're much more grassroots, we're much more close to our customers, in the sense that out of the 16 signatories, almost all of them operate an in-person brokerage business of some kind and consulting of some kind. And those 16 signatories, and now there's much more that have contacted me and told me that they would have signed it. Perhaps maybe 25 now would sign this. Definitely represents, like, as far as I'm concerned, probably half of Canada's OTC market on that letter. So the letter basically states that there's a few different elements to it, but the one that's relevant for 2x is that there is the role of businesses in Bitcoin in the consensus. I would argue the number one role of the exchanges is to determine what is Bitcoin. On their exchange, they will list BTC, they will list BCC, they will list something else. They will also buy listing or not listing, or they legitimize a certain coin. They allow value to flow in and out, which changes the balance of power on the network for the miners, for the price, and all those. And so they have a pretty defining role. And it seemed like we, as businesses at that time, we were kind of waiting for consensus to happen and kind of look where it landed and go there. And I was telling a bunch of people, so we are part of the consensus, so you need to make your opinion known. So just broadly speaking, the guidelines that we set up, and this is nothing official, this is just a shared signed letter. So let me just pull that up. So basically, Bitcoin Core is by default Bitcoin. So this is a stance that all of our businesses have approved. And then if you do a hard fork, if you propose a hard fork, it doesn't matter how much hashing power that hard fork has. It is going to be consensus, right? So it doesn't matter, for example, the businesses that say that we will always follow the longest fork, we don't agree with that. We believe that the Satoshi client descendant Bitcoin Core, that is Bitcoin, regardless of the hashing power. And if there is a fork, then that is by default contentious. Every fork proposal is by default contentious. And then the proponents of the fork need to bring about evidence and make their case publicly that there is consensus on the fork, and consensus of developers, of miners, of users, of businesses, which is near unanimous. Was like threshold. I think that's pretty good for a hard fork. So that was a few months ago, and now it's relevant. I had this talk with not too long ago. So with Pass and Bitcoin Cash, the fork Pass, there's in Bitcoin Cash. Within our parameters, Bitcoin Cash did well, right? They put replay protection, and they didn't claim to be Bitcoin. They didn't claim to the brand of Bitcoin, which the businesses are custodians of. They just said we make an altcoin, and that's fine. Whereas Bitcoin 2x or B2x or Segwit 2x is different, right? So they say it's Bitcoin. They believe it's Bitcoin. There hasn't been any commit on the repo for 22 days. The developer community is not on board. I don't know of the users who are screaming for Segwit 2x like they were for UASF or for Segwit. I don't businesses. They say some people say that there's overwhelming industry support because it was signed by some of the major exchanges. But just 2 days ago, I found a list of all the businesses that didn't sign, and also that opposed. And out of the absentees and strong opponents, there was about 80 businesses there. And in our letter that we published in March, we specifically said, if you are absentee, not before a hard fork, because a hard fork is a very active thing. You need to actively upgrade, or else you're on the wrong chain. So if you don't say anything, by default, this should be Bitcoin's position by default, that if you don't do anything, then you're on the legacy chain, basically, right? So that's it. And then now the 2x part is coming up, and we don't know who's going to list it, and we're back to square one because there's no clear rules and there's no clear framework, and people keep having these dumb policies that just say we're going to follow the longest chain, whatever it is. So we're back to square one. So our idea was to try to frame that, give some kind of tool for businesses to follow, something that's objective, something that's to a certain degree measurable, and so that we can go into these hard forks, not having to scramble every time for a new policy, because this is obviously going to keep happening. And I know I've been talking for a little while, but I just want to say one more thing, is that this is going to be happening a lot. This is going to be, I think, the new standards, both for non-Bitcoin ICOs, right, that are going to be using existing ICOs as balances, as for Genesis block, for example, that keeps a large portion of the coin. This is going to be happening for Bitcoin. The idea that minority forks will die is completely 2013, 2014. There was never this level of speculation. You never had billions of dollars that were ready to pour into funds of the top 100 altcoins. meaning that those minority forks that we thought had no value, so nobody would mine them and they would just disappear, that's not going to happen. They're going to always stay, because any occasion to create a new altcoin out of a fork for speculators is going to be a good one. So we need to be ready to have those things happening. And I can imagine in like 5 years, the first page of CoinMarketCap is just going to be like 50 Bitcoin clones.
Dude, yes, a new precedent has been set with this, definitely. And wow, and I am glad you have set a precedent by trying to define what makes a real coin. Simon, you have a lot to say in response to this, I'm sure, to everything that Francis just said. Do you agree with them putting out this firm stand on what defines the original of a coin? And do you see this being a new trend, and it's good that people are putting their foot down now?
I agree with quite a lot of that, actually. I certainly agree that the precedent has now been set. People are going to watch this. And it's actually a very clever marketing strategy if you're an altcoin to actually give every Bitcoin owner or whatever, every Ethereum owner or every ICO owner and every exchange having to adjust because all of their customers are demanding their free money. So, we're investors in Kraken, Bitstamp, Bitfinex, Unocoin, CoinSecure, BitPayzer, many of the exchanges. And it wreaked absolute havoc across the industry. Someone like Coinbase took a stance and said, we really don't want to support this. They have billions of dollars that they're trying to secure, and to just, simply release a new coin on their platform is a big job because they take security so seriously, and they have to. It's a big, Coinbase is kind of would be the disaster if they ever got hacked for our industry. For it will be then the next Mt. Gox. So they have to do things very seriously. They can't just jump and change. They're not prepared like exchanges who have kind of been adding altcoins and have to move more speculatively. They're actually storing value. So this created carnage across the industry. Now Coinbase suddenly are demanded by all their customers with lawsuits saying, give me my free money, give me my free money. So exchanges have no choice but to give the free money, and any opportunist in the ICO market or someone trying to launch something new will see this as the most amazing marketing strategy. You simultaneously get listed on every exchange, you get the whole world talking about you, and so a standardized process for how to deal with this is what every exchange is working on right now. So Bitcoin never ceases to amaze us in terms of the intellectual challenges it throws at everybody involved in it. But so let's look at something more positive. Well, on the positive side, we also proved that the Bitcoin brand is very hard to plagiarize. People clearly knew that this was an altcoin. People clearly knew that Bitcoin was Bitcoin. Everybody started speculating on a new asset class. No one's spending their Bcash. No one's using their Bcash. I'm not saying that that's not going to change in the future. They seem to be having a community behind it. But everyone knows that what Bitcoin is, and that's a very important thing. I always went into this debate saying the most important thing to me is that we still have 21 million Bitcoins. If we can prove, or if we can find a way of confusing the market into thinking there's 42 million Bitcoins, then that's going to be 84 million Bitcoins, and it's going to be infinite money supply. And Bitcoin that we've all invested in is over as we know it. If that won, it lost. And so that's what's being reflected in the price right now. Everybody knows that Bitcoin is the only store of value, and everything else is an investment that you can speculate on or a trade on around it, and try and make more Bitcoin, and that's fine. The hard fork was less scary than I thought it would be. The second time they'll be more prepared, and everyone's this was very bullish for Bitcoin, and the markets reflected that. So I'm overall pretty happy, and now we've got these ways of people experimenting with their big blocks or whatever the next thing is, or their new governance model that's coming next, or their new privacy model that's coming next, or their zero knowledge proof, or whatever these are. We've kind of got a model for dealing this. But yeah, coin market cap is going to be millions and millions of coins not too long. And the one thing, please, that the market needs to stop saying is Bitcoin is not losing market share. Bitcoin is just competing with millions of clones and coins. And therefore, if you create 1 million new stocks, then obviously the Dow Jones is going to be worth less than 1 million new stocks because you keep cloning. So this percentage of, this statistic of saying Bitcoin's market cap is going down, Bitcoin is being used just as much as it ever was, more than it ever was. It's still the world reserve cryptocurrency of the world, and institutions all around the world are now getting more and more confident in using this as a store of value and recognizing there's pretty much only one asset class worth investing in today's market with what we have ahead, and that is Bitcoin. And that's why all institutions all around the world were kind of waiting for this uncertainty to pass. And I'm telling you, at $3,500, in my opinion, Bitcoin is still the cheapest asset class that exists today.
Well, that is very well said there, Simon. I love all your little sayings you come out with during these talks of yours. Benny, would you have anything to add to that? And what do you think is going to happen with 2x? Are they going to actually hard fork? And do they have a shot of convincing anyone that they are going to be the real Bitcoin? What's your take on what was just said in that too?
Okay, so I think personally that this, when it comes to, first of all, I was impressed with how easily or how well the market actually handled the Bitcoin Cash fork. I thought there was going to be a lot more panic than there was. But Bitcoin just shrugged it off and went to new all-time highs, which is amazing. I also feel like via BTC single-handedly took a crowbar to the knee of 2x, because what they did is they've now split anybody that really, really was pushing for that 2 megabyte hard fork, or for a hard fork in general. Well, they all have their own coin now. So half of them are going to be, pushing for this. And how many people are remaining that really, really wanted that 2 megabyte hard fork? And how many are remaining that were just agreeing to it to get Segwit? So I feel like by launching this altcoin, like super early, they really jumped the gun. And had they waited until 2x was going to be released and then done it, then they would have had more of the industry go along, and some of the companies that maybe wanted it would have gone with that fork at the time if people hadn't made it happen. So I feel like them jumping the gun has almost, well, even if it's not dead on arrival, it's severely limited its capacity to get more people on the side of the 2x fork.
Excellent. Farzam, what are your thoughts? Is there going to be a 2x hard fork? Will people think it's Bitcoin? Do you think it's as clear as everyone else is saying out there what the real Bitcoin is, what Bitcoin altcoins are? What's your take on this with your South African perspective?
Sure. So first of all, I think it was very interesting with Bitcoin Cash, or Bcash, that they actually came out and they actually gave themselves a different name. So right then and there, they kind of acknowledged that they weren't the original Bitcoin. And I think that's something that's kind of new, because in the past, when we talked about forks, we never necessarily talked about the names of those forks. Yes, we were talking about Bitcoin Unlimited and etc. But this time, these guys kind of came out and said, listen, we're actually, it's not an altcoin, they kept saying, but it effectively is. And they made it easy from that perspective by calling it something else to identify what the true original Bitcoin was. So I think it will become much more contentious in the future if people don't make such a claim and say this is what it's going to be, but they may just change like the name of the code rather than the actual the name of the altcoin. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Second thing to keep in mind is like we in the community get really caught up in the short term. Even if we did have a fork at 2x, now that we have Segwit, which is great that allows a second layer transactions, if we didn't have Segwit, just a 2x doesn't solve anything. You know, it's a very short-term solution. And I really agree with what Simon said. I think Bitcoin is so cheap right now. I mean, we have this view that it's hitting all-time highs, but when you actually think about monetary value in our society, if you think about gold, I know we always kind of use this analogy and comparison, but since 1971, when the gold when the dollar was decoupled from gold, it lost 98% of its value against gold. Now that is phenomenal, right? And that kind of just shows you how something that truly is scarce, even though it's physically scarce in this case, can maintain its value over long periods of time, millennia, if certain conditions are met. And I think Bitcoin has all these beautiful attributes of gold. It doesn't rust, it's durable, etc. And it's even better than that because it's much more portable. So from my perspective, we're still, as an industry, like I put out a tweet a few days ago kind of saying, like, right now we're super excited about a market cap going over 120 billion US dollars. I think we shouldn't be surprised in the next 3 to 5 years if we see that market cap at over 3 trillion US dollars. So this is really an exponential phenomenon. Our human minds are not tasked and are not equipped very well to understand exponential phenomena. And so even if you in your wildest dreams back in 2010 were saying that Bitcoin would be worth $3,500 in 2017, people would call you nuts. And we've seen how it's kind of happened, and that trend is just going to continue. So it's very exciting times. I personally am not too worried about the short-term protocol changes. I think, given the nature of this system, like things will kind of they'll find their way, and the original Bitcoin will kind of move forward, and that will be the Bitcoin that most people actually believe in. So I think it's early days, it's exciting times. I'm super excited to be part of this journey.
Wow, this is a really good optimistic discussion, deep discussion. Everyone, pound that like button if you like what's going on. You're up here for this special European time start. I know everybody in Europe and Africa is real happy. And I also wanted to thank the great Fractal Vlogs who sent $5 over the super chat. I see that now. I'm not checking out the chat today because it's hard managing this awesome discussion. I want to say to the panel here, again, we've said a lot of deep things. Does anyone have something they want to add on to all of this that we just said? I think there's some eager ones of you out there that wanted to add on there.
I'll add a little comment. Sorry if I think it's worth rethinking how we think of these, what we're calling attacks. We've seen it now. We've seen it a few times. I think we should kind of celebrate these attacks because Bitcoin really is decentralized and the market does determine in the end. And while there might be these centralized attacks, or there might be degrees of centralization in mining, or degrees of centralization in development, or degrees all around of centralization, the one thing we have proven is that these attacks are healthy for the ecosystem. They do calm the price down a bit, which I think is very healthy because exponential growth in financial markets just doesn't ever happen. It's very, if you have exponential growth, you get exponential crashes and bubbles, and that hurts a lot of people. So slow and steady growth is always the way to do it. And what these attacks have done is they're kind of slowing down Bitcoin, allowing us to rethink what's important, creating a free market, approach to how we can experiment with 8 megabyte blocks, or maybe 8 megabytes is good, who knows? Or how we can experiment with different types of things. And the market really is determining that. But, rather than being an attack on Bitcoin, is kind of like, let's watch what that one does. Let's see how the community congregates around it. And let's see what changes we can make in Bitcoin in a safe way with the developers that have got a proven track record of doing these in very responsible, slow ways. So I think it's time to, reflect upon these years and years of hate that we've developed in this extremely painful scaling debate, and try and think beyond where we are and celebrate the fact that all these different schools of thoughts trying to achieve different things has actually given us the Bitcoin that we have today. And the one question in my mind was always, can Bitcoin scale to meet the demand of the world? And we're not there yet, but we're getting more and more closer to that. And these tax are required in order to get us there. So I'd like everyone to kind of rethink what these things mean to them, because it is exciting and it is positive.
I by and large agree with Simon here. I did want to add too that it adds that free market element to it. Like I don't think there should just be one currency, because let's say you are unhappy with how Bitcoin works. That's not outside the realm of possibility that somebody maybe doesn't agree with the roadmap, and that's fine. And those people are now given a coin that aligns with their ideals, which is fantastic. People should be able to do that. I love that they're able to split off, and now we have two separate groups of people that both got what they want. The market has shown us that more people want what we have with Segwit, but also some people want what Bitcoin Cash has, and that's fantastic. And not only that, it further incentivizes, like, you're already incentivized to hold Bitcoin, but it further incentivizes you to hold Bitcoin, because then when people split off, you have these other coins, you can liquidate those and get more Bitcoin. So, I mean, it's win-win for everybody.
Yeah, so actually, I'm not a trader, but before the Bitcoin Cash fork, I was planning on splitting everything and dumping as soon as possible. So I actually liquidated most of my non-Bitcoin assets and got everything. You know, I consolidated all of my Bitcoins in one place for the split on a Trezor, and with the price going up, I mean, that ended up being retroactively a very good decision. So thank you, Bitcoin Cash fork, for getting us all to take our Bitcoins out of exchanges and split them. And I mean, a lot of good points. I mean, I share everyone's optimism. As you can tell behind me, there's a poster of a little Bitcoin guy that's going. That's the roller coaster guy, by the way, if you recognize that. But he's not on a roller coaster anymore. He's going to the moon. So I'm super bullish for many reasons. And like Simon says, I mean, I'm into Bitcoin for the also for the political and socio-political experimentation that we're seeing, and I really like the way that all of this planned out. I mean, I'm really happy about going to Bitcoin from that perspective, because everything that I thought was going to happen kind of did happen. I'm a really big proponent of the kind of a opt-in, opt-out type of system of governance, right? I'm not a huge believer in governance mechanisms to achieve compromise, whereas I always thought this is why I'm interested in seasteading projects and all those projects whereby you kind of choose your set of rules, and if you don't like it, you don't impose it upon anyone else. You just leave and start your own set of rules. And in Bitcoin, that's really interesting because you kind of have all these communities that are revolving around the way that money is created, and this is the most important thing to them. And these rules of how the money is managed is absolutely fanatical, and ultimately, the Bitcoin brand is not that strong that they won't let it go for their political ideals, which is great. So now that we have this behind us, there's a lot of good points from an investor's point of view and from a more Bitcoin asset class and the trust in that point of view. So I think I had mentioned that before. I talked to a lot of investors as well, Simon, and what I'm hearing now is my pitch was that no, the Chinese mining, kind of this picture they have of the Chinese miners, they don't control Bitcoin. They may think they control Bitcoin and say they control, but they don't. So that has kind of been proven with or at least, I mean, there's that. It's actually the hardcore of the user and holders and some of the more interested participants that are in control. So that's really good. In terms of the possibilities, I don't think people really fully understand the possibilities of Lightning Network and how real it is now, and how the whole story of Hyperledger and of the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance and the whole story of these kind of other blockchains is kind of crumbling away. With Lightning Network, I know of a project right now that uses a very sophisticated Lightning Network that holds a fixed amount of fiat in a payment channel by using an oracle. which allows a infinitely scalable fiat representation on the blockchain just by having this massive Lightning Network smart contract that looks at the Bitcoin price and that will update the state of payment channels where liquidity providers such as banks, they will act as intermediaries anyway. So you have fiat, basically value on the Bitcoin blockchain on the Lightning Network with no counterparty and no like meta protocol. I mean, there's so many crazy things that are coming. It's mind blowing. In terms of privacy, one of the big problems to Bitcoin is privacy. So, and this is true for institutional investors mostly. Large financial institutions have expressed deep concerns over that. Another issue was the lack of programmability of Bitcoin transactions, which for some basic smart contracts, which are actually valid, you can't do that using Bitcoin script. So fortunately, passing Segwit has all these other unseen consequences, which are not even reflected in the price yet. So I agree 100% with Simon. This is stuff that we kind of know, but no one really kind of sees coming. You know, Schnorr signatures, which are next after Segwit, basically, without Segwit, this would never have passed, allows you to have really sophisticated scripting in Bitcoin, which, as far as I have understood, allows you to do automated payment forwarding natively on Bitcoin in a decentralized way. Which is like, wow, isn't that what, you know, the use case of Ethereum is just tokens that distribute dividends? So you have, you know, you have multi-sig, which doesn't really work on, it does work on Ethereum, but there was bugs in it. You have colored coins and assets and that kind of stuff and payment channels, which are smart contracts. And then you have automated payment forwards, which are smart contracts that everybody uses for Ethereum, right? Like you send money there and it splits the money according to whoever has whatever. And if you can do that with Schnorr signatures, and I'm not even talking about rootstock, right? So I mean, wow, like look at all that value that Bitcoin is going to be sucking from all the other blockchain platforms. So with that being said, I mean, I'm super happy. I'm super bullish. I think it's great that people, it is not necessarily an attack to me. Like it was kind of an attack. I use that language myself, but I am also happy that these things happen. And if Bitcoin wasn't able to withstand this, I would leave Bitcoin because it would be too heavy on my morale. If I didn't have like this faith that Bitcoin is always going to be better after these attacks, I would just leave, right? And now I'm not too worried because I know every time like people try to hurt Bitcoin or every time there's stress, and we've learned more in the last 2 years than the last previous 5 years about Bitcoin, specifically because of the scaling debate, which got everybody interested into thinking about how it works. So all around the end of my monologue is really like I was bullish every time I was on this show with Benny too for like the past 2-3 months. And now I'm just super bullish. I mean, I'm nervous. I'm nervous, like Simon says too. I'm nervous. This is going too fast. So yeah, it's a great time to be alive.
Can I put a word of caution in there?
Yeah, please.
So you know, I think one of the things that I've realized in life in general, and I think it applies to the Bitcoin community as well, is that the biggest accomplishments are kind of achieved through unity. And you know, the vitriol and kind of the ego that has been playing out in the Bitcoin world the past couple of years, I think hasn't been a great service to anybody. So, you know, I think we all would love Bitcoin to do well, but I do believe there are scenarios in which Bitcoin and the people that profess themselves to be the biggest advocates of Bitcoin, because of their disunity, could shoot themselves in the foot. And I think just because this hard fork has gone relatively well, and as I think, according to all of us, it's gone much more smoother than we had imagined, I don't think we can say that all hard forks in the future will be as seamless. And so I wouldn't want to get kind of a sense of complacency to repeat what has happened over the past couple of years and the kind of disunity and vitriol and quite frankly, just ugliness that was taking place within the Bitcoin community. And we kind of need to get rid of our egos, try to do something that's best for the ecosystem. Without that, Bitcoin may have troubles in the future.
I think I agree, but I don't think it's going to happen again, these long debates, because what I think we've discovered is that there is no conflict resolution mechanism like within Bitcoin that effectively works. And we've tried everything we could think of, like everything for 2 years. And now we know that, and I agree with you, these cryptocurrency systems need to be extremely tight and united. And this is why they succeed. And when there's a conflict, it seems now that, according to me, it seems now that the solution is just to have, I'd rather have these really tight-knit groups, these really solid network effects that have like solid cores around them than just a big kind of you know, I'd rather have a diluted, a non-diluted,
Sure.
smaller cores now, because what we're doing, remember, there is no adoption yet of Bitcoin. Like what we're doing, and I don't think we should measure the ecosystem in terms of adoption. I think we should measure the ecosystem in terms of, are we ready to see 1 billion people rush to Bitcoin because fiat and banks have collapsed? Right. So in order for that, this is like, I'm not too sad to see BitPay's numbers go down. Right. I just want us to be ready. And for us to be ready, we need to be extremely united. So I'm happy to see these small hard cores of people that are just, you know, because there's so much foundational work. We're already talking about building on top, but the foundational work needs some, you know, some radical people that are very united. So I agree with you. This is our biggest strength. And if it doesn't work out, then, you know, we need to part ways. And it's going to be faster in the future. It's going to be much faster. It's going to be less nastier, because the idea of trying to overpower Bitcoin. I mean, that was the best shot they had. Like, you know, that was the best shot. You know, Bitcoin Cash is a pretty good effort. It wasn't easy to pull off.
All right. And any of you have anything to add to all that right there? Because this has been an excellent discussion, most excellent. All right. If you don't, I have a question for every single one of you. Because people are wondering this. This is a pretty basic question. Well, it's two-part question, and we'll start with Simon. Have you sold your Bcash yet? And do you think there will be a 2x hard fork, or will they just give up the dream? Simon, unmute yourself first.
So yeah, I did a very stupid thing during the fork, and that was I decided, here's a chunk of Bitcoin where I'm willing to just chuck it on an exchange and see what happens. And so I took what was you know, a pretty large number of Bitcoin, and I had them on Kraken and Bitfinex, and I was ready to just to dump them. It turned out to be a pretty good move. But now I'm, you know, trying to push through some withdrawal limits to get them off the exchange.
What do you mean, Bitcoin or Bcash? Bitcoin or Bcash?
Oh, sorry, Bcash. Yeah, sorry. I never sell Bitcoin. I spend Bitcoin. I earn Bitcoin. I never try and time the bottom. I never try and pick the top. I never, you know, if I ever started trying to trade Bitcoin and say, right, we've got to, you know, it's reached a point where it needs to calm down. It always burns, you know, it's impossible to do. Just, it's stressful as well. You know, I don't sell Bitcoin. I spend them, certainly willing to spend them, you know, because I like to incentivize our staff. You know, we give a percentage of our staff Bitcoin, and, you know, and that's just a great way of getting people to want to work for you and stuff in this new economy. But yeah, I don't do that. So yeah, I had a load of I put some on the exchange. It kind of, you know, the worst advice kind of rewarded people during this hard fork, in that if you had yours in a very secure environment, you couldn't get them on the exchange and you couldn't sell them. But then again, you know, and so we, you know, I was very fortunate to catch some of the $600, $700 wave when no one could actually get them there, but I didn't put all of them on there. You know, I was managing that, so I've still got some that I can pull out, which I just haven't got round to. And I've got, you know, I did some that I just put on the exchange and sold those. And I had fun with it. It was a really exciting day. I was on the World Crypto Network on that 8-hour marathon. And it was just an exciting day when everyone was learning stuff. So, you know, it was just really interesting. So yeah, I did sell them. It's an altcoin to me. I have no idea of the value. There's a community behind it that think they can do something with it. And good luck to them. But, you know, I tell you what does drive me insane, and is when I'm tweeting something about Bitcoin. And I know that, you know, when I go and present, I get there's new people that listen, and you know, what the bit that I hate about the division that has come is that we're confusing too many new people. I start saying something about Bitcoin, and then someone that's very bullish on Bitcoin starts saying how shit Bitcoin is because they're pumping Bitcoin Cash and saying all the problems with it, and they don't actually mean that Bitcoin's shit. What they mean is that we believe that there's a different way that Bitcoin needs to progress.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a newbie and you're reading these tweets, you're seeing somebody that's really into Bitcoin slagging off Bitcoin, and they interpret that as like Bitcoin's a scam, or Bitcoin's rubbish money, or Bitcoin's crap. And so the community kind of is starting to attack itself in the, we're confusing a lot of people. But look, no one controls Bitcoin. No one can stop these things. It is what it is. This asset, Bitcoin is going to become what it's going to become. It's too important invention, and it's too important to too many people that every time something crazy happens, you've got really, really smart people, idiots, trolls, everything that all congregate together and create this environment where at the end of it, we get a better Bitcoin. And I'm just coming to terms with that. And kind of the chaos and the conflict, I'm just going to come to terms with it, because that's never going. We're never going to be a united front like that anymore. And then you've got the newbies, that there's so... I have got no idea where this statistic comes from, but it feels to me that approximately, 500,000 new people or 1 million new people joined this community in the last year, because there's so many people that don't have any idea about the history that went straight into Ethereum or straight into an ICO, don't know anyone, who anyone is. They're debating with people on Twitter like they know absolutely everything, without understanding their history. And I was kind of resistant to that. I was a bit annoyed about that. But then again, hey, this is what happens when Bitcoin grows. We've got to accept this. We're kind of got to play the role and be a bit more patient of, okay, yeah, we've been around for a few years. We understand there might be some history that you don't know about. But, we've got to kind of help them understand the history, help them understand what, that their understanding might not come with a lot of knowledge behind that. So, but, we're growing, we're getting loads of new users. And while while it might be frustrating, this is where we are now. We've got $125 billion a market cap. That means, now here's, say what you want about ICOs, say what you want about all these things, but the fact of the matter is, you can come along right now, have an idea of something that you think improves this crypto market that many people will think will crazy, every bank will think will crazy, every VC might think is crazy, and you can now get it funded by a group of people that really believe in that vision. And that's self-sustaining now. That's how you get from 125 billion to 1 trillion to 5 trillion and beyond. Because now we don't need to ask VCs. We don't need to ask the banks. We don't need permission in that sense. It's a completely self-sustaining environment where you can think something's a scam and stay out of it, or you can participate in something. And there's so many problems with this market. Believe me, I could go into just as many problems with where it is. But the fact of the matter is we created $125 billion of value out of nowhere. And that is, there'll be crashes, there'll be everything along the way, but the cat is out of the bag. There's no reversal of this trend. The internet has been created. People are creating websites all around the world. Bitcoin is the protocol. There's lots of derivatives that come from Bitcoin. There's alternatives, there's chains, there's altcoins, there's Ethereum, there's ICOs, there's everything, but no one person can even keep up with the amount of innovation that's happening right now. And, I'm getting 25 white papers a day of things that, I think anyone involved in this community is just completely overwhelmed and excited at the same time. So, it's sorry if I'm blabbering here, but it's a reflection of what my email inbox looks like right now, given where we are today and what's actually happening. And, bring it on. It's exciting times.
It's a great comment, because I'm actually worried about a lot of people that are getting very tired. Like at Consensus, I saw a lot of the best people that have been in crypto for like 5-6 years, and I was and at the time where we're taking off, like we all need to be very well rested and just to be able to deal with all those new people. and not lose patience with those new people. That's like a big challenge. And also, I was tweeting about it. I'm kind of joking, but I'm not. Is like resisting the urge to gloat, and that's really like Bitcoiner problems. But yeah, as the newbies come in, we often forget that we're speaking some weird lingo on Twitter that just doesn't make any sense. Like, I would love to just take some tweets that I wrote and like show them to me like 4 years ago and be like, what the hell does that even mean? You know what I mean? Completely alien.
Well, Francis, did you sell your Bcash? What's your status on your Bcash?
Yeah, I did. It was super fun. So I took I actually did take a week off of work just to deal with all that stuff and just to relax a little bit. So I woke up at 8 in the morning, you know, I had consolidated all my, and actually it's funny, I was on Benny's show. I don't know if you remember Benny, but I said a one time only advice. One time only is to leave your Bitcoin on the exchange if you want to trade Bcash. It was a one-time only advice. And of course, I did not follow my own advice. Of course, I put everything on the Trezor because I did take like Bitcoins out of cold storage and selling some altcoins and stuff. And I was like, oh, there's no way I'm sending this to Bittrex. Like, I just couldn't do it. So and then so the fork happens, and then I'm ready to dump. I got my Trezor tool, and I'm super stoked about that. And and then Kraken doesn't open the funding, right? Kraken doesn't open BCH funding, and I started getting super mad because I was really, really hoping. I was hesitating to put everything on Kraken. I was like, and I got super mad, and I was even thinking, oh my god, this is a conspiracy. They called everyone, and they said, put all your Bitcoins on Kraken, and we'll close the funding. So. And then I went to Bittrex, and I really wanted to dump all my BCH. I actually thought it was going to go down much faster. I was really worried. I was like, yes, I finally know something that the market doesn't. So, you know, let's profit from that for once. So it was actually it was not an easy process. So on Bittrex, it opened the funding. As soon as it opened funding, I put my BCH there. I put the priority fee on Trezor, which was about $3.50 US. For BCH, so much for the low fees. But I'm joking. At that time, it was very there was a lot of traffic on that blockchain. It actually took about, I think that maybe a day to get to Bittrex. So 20 confirmations, I think, took about maybe 30 hours. And I had an auto sell button on Bittrex for everything. And I've just been, a lot of friends have been using my Bittrex auto sell button because they don't know how to do that. So been helping people dump right since the beginning. For me, it was unreal. When I got the Bitcoins out of Bittrex, it was really a surreal feeling of having done basically a 10% bonus on all my Bitcoins. I kind of took it as a Satoshi's way of thanking me for the UASF thing. Or something like that. I don't know. So yeah, that free money. I realized those gains on the free money, and these are now Bitcoins that are going to be Bitcoins forever. So yeah, I'm super happy about that.
All right, Farzan. Yes, Farzan.
That's good. I've got to run in a second, but let me just quickly answer. So a couple of things. So first of all, I have not sold my BCH. Don't intend to actually. And just kind of thinking back at the hard fork with Ethereum. I remember people being super excited about selling it at 90 cents or, it got to $1.50 and selling it. And so my view is I'm long this asset class. I'm not too interested in the shorts, day-to-day trading, and I'm excited to see the entire asset class grow. One of the things that's sad for me is when people hear about this industry because of these phenomenal growth rates in the past, and all they do is they come and ask me about, what should I invest in? What are the best coins to invest in? Because they've totally missed out on the genius of Satoshi and understanding what this glorious technology means for humanity. And I think that's a really sad situation where people are just kind of treating this as just another asset class, a kind of get-rich-quick scheme without really understanding why. And so I always encourage people, understand why you believe this asset class or a particular coin is actually going to take off and why you actually believe it's going to have value in the future. So my view is kind of just I'm enjoying the show. I'm with Simon from the perspective that I kind of buy it and I spend it. I don't generally really sell it. So I'm in here for the long term, and I welcome every new coin I get by not buying any new coin.
Awesome. Well, Farzam, thank you for being on the
Guys,
show today.
I'm gonna head off. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Cheers,
All right,
guys.
we'll see you. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Benny, so
Yeah.
did you sell? Are you holding? Are you partially or?
Yeah. So I liquidated everything I could. So I had some Bitcoin on a Trezor, some Bitcoin on a Ledger Nano S. So those were super easy to deal with and split and send to an exchange. Of course, I most people, I had to wait those 20 confirmations to get access to my Bcash on the exchange to then sell. But I've still got some sitting on a keep key that they haven't released the new software to be able to access and send it. So I'm kind of waiting on that as well. I'm also in the process of making videos for people so they can understand how to access their Bcash if they have some. So I'm working on that. It's like really simple walkthroughs. But to kind of respond, I know he's gone, but Farzam said after the split, how everybody was excited to sell their Ethereum Classic at whatever, however, 90 cents and everything, and it's worth more now. Yeah, but you have to look at the percentage gain versus the percentage gain that Ethereum itself made since that split. And at the split, you had Ethereum Classic sitting at about, I think it was about 15 to 20% of the value of Ethereum. And now Ethereum Classic, I'm not sure what it is today, but it's closer to about 6% of the value of Ethereum. So had you actually liquidated your Ethereum Classic and bought more Ethereum, you'd be up. And it's really the only example we have to go on for this. So in my head, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. So I'm anticipating that potentially, again, like Bcash is sitting at, now it's like 10%, but it was like 15, 20% of the value of one Bitcoin, and it's going down. I don't think it's going anywhere, but I don't think in terms of the value per Bitcoin, I don't think it's going to stay necessarily where it's at or go up too much from where it is. I think it'll just kind of stick around. It'll have its ebbs and flows like every other cryptocurrency. But by and large, I believe more in Bitcoin. So as soon as I can liquidate those Bcash sitting on my keep key, I probably will. And that's fine. Like I don't mind if people hold it. That's up to them. If they believe in it, then the price of it shouldn't matter.
Yeah, and I don't get the argument like, oh, it's free Bcash, I'm gonna hold to see what happens. It's like, so why don't you just sell it and then you have Bitcoin and then you can invest in any altcoin like you would normally do, right?
Yeah, upon further reflection, though, really, it kind of, I mean, to me, it was like dead cert. Everyone would be selling, and no one could prop it up. But it didn't work that way. It didn't actually happen as I thought it would go. But upon reflection, if you think about what altcoins versus Bitcoin are, Bitcoin is, it used to be a highly speculative version of an altcoin when Bitcoin was around, but now it's become like this rock store of value for those that, if Bitcoin scales and achieves certain goals, then it's kind of, like the solid thing. So you'd always, the rules of the markets are risk return. So Bitcoin is a much lower risk. So it's expected over the long term, in the short term, to be lower return. And altcoins, you're basically, you're taking huge risk. So you'd expect higher returns, but you're just using it as an investment to try and convert it back into Bitcoin so that you can have the lower risk store of value, because there is only one store of value. That's a fact. In the entire cryptocurrency market, there is only one store of value, and there's tons of investments to try and get into that store of value or make your store of value worth less. And so, you'd expect, and that's why altcoins are so attractive to people, because it's just a way for them to make or lose their Bitcoin in a really fast way, so that they can then get on the store of value and sit on their Bitcoins and spend them as they become wealthier and wealthier.
Simon, I just want to say you one thing. I just remembered something as you were talking, that at the Bitcoin Embassy, which is where I used to work at, there was actually a photo of you on the wall with a quote when I got there. So in 2013, so it was like a famous Bitcoiner like Bill Gates, and there was Simon Dixon, and it was something about it was some quote about the nature of money or something like that. And when you were saying like Bitcoin is the store of value, have you started to realize that Bitcoin is the unit of account now also, and that the altcoin traders, they refer to Bitcoin as Satoshis, and it's 0.01 Bitcoin, and it's 12,000 Satoshis, per coin.
That's how I value Bcash now. When I look at it, I'm like, oh, I can get 1/10 of a Bitcoin.
Yeah, right. So there's properties of money. Everybody was saying, oh, nobody's measuring anything in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's not a unit of account. It's always converted from USD. Well, in the Bitcoin, in like the crypto economy, things are nominated in Bitcoin as the base value. So Bitcoin may not have the 3 economists, magic, whatever properties of money, but they do in the real, in the physical world. But in the crypto space, I mean, unit of method of payment. Everybody buys. Everybody buys their altcoin with Bitcoin, and store of value. Obviously, whenever you make money with an altcoin, I always say that altcoins, value proposition is to make people more Bitcoins. And the third one is the unit of account, right? So we're measuring stuff in Bitcoin now. So within the crypto economy, like Bitcoin is top dog. It's the money, it's the form of money. So I mean, that's from an economist's perspective. That's really interesting. It's really cool to see it play out like we thought it would.
Well, everyone, pound that like button, everyone, because this has been an awesome show. We're going to start tying it up right now, but I wanted to make an announcement real quick. Everybody, or a lot of people watching this show and my channel are familiar with Gabriel in Venezuela. He's been a guest on this show before. He's been on guests on my other shows before, and he is safe in Venezuela. I have talked to him over email and some other ways, and he is good, in case you were wondering, because we have fans in Venezuela, and we have people who've been on this show in Venezuela, and Gabriel is pretty legendary around here. So if anyone was curious, that's my little tidbit of the week. And I am happy that Gabriel is safe in Venezuela, and I wish him good luck down there, and everyone be careful, and hopefully everything will get straightened out down there soon enough. Okay, everybody else, please share your stories of the week. Benny, you're first.
Story of the week,
or just news, anything you want to. The floor is yours.
What I really enjoyed seeing was an advisor to Putin, I believe. They just raised like $100 and something million to start massive mining operations in Russia to compete with China. And my favorite thing about it was that they're using Bitfury chips, or Bitfury rig. Like they're going with Bitfury. So they're giving, I'd say they're adding more competition to the space as far as where mining operations are located, but also for the people that are making mining rigs and fabricating chips. It's just injecting more competition into mining, but also encouraging other companies, I think, to get into the space and start fabricating these chips, because I think that's one place where it is a little too centralized, and I'd like to see more companies come to that space. And if they see countries starting to compete on this sort of a level, there's bound to be more competition soon. So for me, that's something that really stood out in the past week here.
Yeah, I like that one too. I mentioned that, and I think there's so many bullish things to take away from that story. Even if they don't get their act together, who knows? These are like semi-state run companies. What's going to happen? But still, the sentiment is there. It's good news. Francis, what do you have to say? Any additional thoughts?
To be honest, I kind of lose a sense of time. So I don't know what happened last week versus like 3 weeks ago, because like the last month for me is like a whole blur of news. Like I just can't put my finger on anything, honestly.
No.
Yeah. It's just too much overload.
Yeah, I feel that too. And I mean, that's a story in itself. The content creators, the guys that are playing around in this space, it has been wild. It's like every day there's a million new things. What am I going to talk about? What am I going to cover? What's going to keep me up late at night? And how am I going to spread the word to get this so everybody does the right thing. So I know what you're feeling. I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't know what time it is. I'm all over the place. Simon, You're going to get the final thoughts here on the show. What do you have to add today?
I think a story that's not got as much airtime just because of the nature of what's been happening over the last few months is actually BTCE. BTCE, for those of you that are kind of new to this, it was a real epiphany for me because it filled a gap in the history, in Bitcoin the movie, that I'm sure is coming out soon. I think they'll need like a whole. There's definitely a whole series on Bitcoin the movie to come out. You know, your whole 24 style movie. But BTCE it filled in such a gap for me of my and now it's so obvious, but I just didn't see it at the time. I always wondered that, you know, Bitcoin as censorship resistant money means that one of its user cases is certainly for people that need censorship resistance. And that means that it can be used for ransoms, it can be used for ransomware, it can be used for money laundering, it can be used for, you know, all the money that's being made on the dark web and all these interesting things. But I always wondered, how does all that money get converted into fiat? And now I know, because BTCE was the exchange where all the hacked Bitcoins from Mt. Gox and all the ransom and all the crazy things were actually going to convert them into fiat. Because I just thought, you know, that can't all be done through Bitcoin ATMs and things like that. So it filled in such a gap in the history. And then we find out that, you know, the CEO or the founder or whatever it is, I'm probably not even getting the stories right. You know, it has been is trying to be extradited into the US for $4 billion of money laundering. And then, you know, what happens? BTCE come along saying we're going to put our exchange up as usual. And because the feds or whoever who has confiscated clients' money or whatever is happening with those Bitcoins, and notice very few people were crying out about the money they lost, probably because they couldn't, because there were so many people that had money on there that they couldn't cry out and talk about the money they lost. I'm not sure. I'm sure, you know, I pity, I'm not trying to trivialize anyone that lost their money for you. I'm sorry for your loss, and hopefully that comes back. But now they're talking about doing an ICO and launching a token in order to make up for the money, you know, and this is just an unbelievable story. Imagine if it turns out that this exchange comes back online, everyone makes their money back through some kind of financial engineering. And what this does is it paves the way for what we talk about in previous shows, Adam, which, as I said, the future of the ICO market is you'll have people that identify themselves doing regulated ICOs in a regulated structure. And then you'll have, just like Bitcoin, two markets, a regulated market, KYC market, on the exchanges, and then an underground market where people are anonymous on the deep web doing ICOs that circumvent government controls and you know, kind of just like those things. And now we're getting that case study of ICOs probably being done the way that they were intended to do, you know, with fully anonymous, censorship resistance. What a fascinating story. It's you know, Bitcoin the movie is just going to be the best movie ever.
It's going to have to be like a Netflix series, a recurring one.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, so my news of the week is actually the shutting down of Alphabet and the arrest and suicide of Alexis Cazin, which was the alleged admin, which is obviously the whole story is tied together, right? So there's been a lot of activity on the Darknet. So, you know, Alphabet was a mammoth of the Darknet, and this guy was also a legend of the Darknet. Actually, he was found hanged in his cell. So that's another story. If you want to look into those, the Alphabet case, that's another movie entirely, because
and it also ties into the Mt. Gox history, which also ties in
exactly.
You know, when Bitcoin became a store of value in the early days, when, you know, this story is just a brilliant story. It's just, it's just so fascinating.
It's crazy. It's all very hush hush, but there's a lot of action. And, you know, I was just thinking about it. That there's a lot of people not selling their Bitcoins now. There's a lot of people that are not selling their Bitcoins that used to sell their Bitcoins as soon as they got Bitcoins, because what they wanted to buy to sell on the internet, they could only buy with US dollars, right? So all the vendors of the dark web when it goes down, and all the money launderers, you know, when their money, when this goes down, they're stuck with Bitcoin. So they can't, the daily dump that happens on exchanges isn't happening. So, you know, wild theory is, you know, you see the price increasing as a result, and, you know, it starts to make sense a little bit. You know, there's a lot of pressure of the exchanges that those people are dumping. So I wanted to make it the opposing argument. I was going to say, well, the whole Darknet economy crashed and the Bitcoin didn't crash, so we may have moved on. But it just goes to show you how much we don't know about what goes on in Bitcoin, I guess. So yeah, that's a very interesting story. I'm very excited to see how this whole who's gonna when the mystery will unravel itself fully, because we have a lot of moving parts. And I have a feeling, you know, one day we're just gonna, the lid is gonna pop off, and we're just gonna see the whole one massive scheme run by a few people, and it's all gonna make sense. So that day will be pretty fun, I'm sure.
Well, awesome, guys. This has been a really good show. I thank all my guests for being on all over the world. I hope everyone out there learned a lot. I'm here in Dublin, Ireland. I'm going to relax a little bit finally. I'll see some of you at an event tomorrow, Saturday. But again, thank you, guests. Thank you, viewers. Pound that like button. I'm Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Remember to subscribe to this channel, like this channel, share this video. Check out the notes section below. I'll have everybody's links down there soon. Have a great day. And European and African viewers, I hope you like this start time. Maybe we'll have some earlier ones now that I'm in Ireland for a week. So thanks a lot. Bye-bye, everyone.